Hi class, and welcome to this recorded session. In the previous hours, we have discussed the background information regarding this particular poem at length. So I'll not be repeating that right now. I thought that we'll begin studying this poem by reading it out loud. Now, reading aloud a poem is a very, very important part of studying it. Why? Because when you read it aloud, okay, even when you are reading it, if you don't want to listen to me reading it, that's perfectly fine. Please read it yourself, but read it aloud. Okay, only when you read it aloud will you be able to identify the different sounds, the rhythm, the rhyme scheme, the alliteration, the other beautiful devices that have been put in to create this poem. Okay, so that is the very first exercise that we do when we study a poem. Let's read it out loud first, and then we'll move on to the analysis. Oh, young Lochinar is come out of the west. To all the wide border his steed was the best, and save his good broadsword he weapons had none. He rode all unarmed, and he rode all alone. So faithful in love and so dauntless in war, there never was a knight like the young Lochinar. He stayed not for brake, and he stopped not for stone. He swam the Esk river, where ford there was none. But ere he alighted at Netherby gate, the bride had consented, the gallant came late. For a laggard in love and a dastard in war was to wed the fair Ellen of brave Lochinar. So boldly he entered the Netherby hall among bridesmen and kinsmen and brothers and all. Then spoke the bride's father, his hand on his sword, for the poor craven bridegroom said never a word. O come ye in peace here, or come ye in war, or to dance at our bridal, young Lord Lochinar? I long wooed your daughter, my suit you denied. Love swells like the Solway, but ebbs like its tide. And now I am come, with this lost love of mine, to lead but one measure, drink one cup of wine. There are maidens in Scotland more lovely by far, that would gladly be bride to young Lochinar. The bride kissed the goblet, the knight took it up. He quaffed of the wine, and he threw down the cup. She looked down to blush, and looked up to sigh, with a smile on her lips, and a tear in her eye. He took her soft hand, ere her mother could bar. Now tread we a measure, said young Lochinar. So stately his form, and so lovely her face, that never a hall such a galliard did grace. While her mother did fret, and her father did fume, and the bridegroom stood dangling his bonnet and plume. And the bridemaidens whispered, 'Twere better by far to have matched our fair cousin with young Lochinar. One touch to her hand and one word in her ear, when they reached the hall door, and the charger stood near. So light to the croak the fair lady he swung, so light to the saddle before her he sprung. She is won, we are gone, over bank, bush and scaur. They'll have fleet steeds that follow, quoth young Lochinar. There was mounting Mongrames of the Netherby clan, Frosters, Fenwicks, and Musgraves. They rode and they ran. There was racing and chasing on Cannobie Lee, but lost pride of Netherby never did they see. So daring in love and so dauntless in war, have ye ever heard of gallant like young Lochinar? Sorry, I made a few lisps here and there, but I hope you'll forgive that. But please, I'm sure you must have heard the rhythm flowing through this entire poem, right? It's almost like 1 2 1 2 1 2. It's like waves lapping up and down. And why that is? It's because of the rhyming couplets. Okay, so before I go on to that, let's look at the introduction to this particular poem. Now, as discussed earlier, this poem belongs to Canto 5 of Merriman, which is an epic poem written by Walter Scott. So, Walter Scott, it was written in the year 1808. What is an epic poem? I told you in the last class, right? It's a very, very long, lengthy poem that has a central theme of a great and grand nature. The style that is used to write the epic will also be great and grand in style. Okay, it will be very lofty, very highly worded. And this particular work, Merriman, is also an epic poem, and as you can see from the portion that we have read, the language used, the theme of love, the universal theme of love. It is an epic, right? So the background deals with the Battle of Flodden between the Kingdom of England and Scotland, and why this is important is because Netherby Hall, which is mentioned in the poem and where Ellen lives, the lover of Lochinar, okay, this Netherby Hall is actually in the border of between England and Scotland, and as we discussed in the last class, these borders were always a disturbed land because there were so many clans and tribes there who were always fighting among themselves. There were always skirmishes, there were always small battles and disturbances happening, and there were also these raiders who used to raid villages and do all those kind of things, and Ellen belonged to one such clan. Okay, so this particular poem, if we look at this particular portion of this poem, we can call it as a literary ballad. Okay, now I told you in the last class what a ballad is. A ballad is actually a short narrative folk song. Okay, so it is short, it is not long like the epic, it is short. Okay, and it is narrative in the sense that it will tell a story. Okay, there will be a story, but basically it is like a folk song. That means ballads were originally sung by people. You must have seen in your movies, there are in these king's courts, there would be these bards who would sing songs about the king and his greatness and everything, right? So bards used to sing these ballads. Okay, so here also this is a literary ballad. Now there are two types of ballads. There is a traditional ballad and there is a literary ballad. Okay, the only difference between the two, they are similar in style and structure and everything else. The only difference between the two is that a traditional ballad, you never know who's written it. It's anonymous. Okay, because it's been passed down through the generations, and it is probably one of these bards who made up the song, so no one knows who wrote it. Okay, but a literary ballad on the other hand is written by a well-known author, so the authorship is known. So that's why we call this as a literary ballad, because we know that Walter Scott wrote it. Okay, and a ballad, as I told you earlier, is a short narrative folk song. All right, next the next point is that this we look at the structure of this particular poem. Okay, if you look at the structure of this poem, there are 48 lines. Okay, there are 48 lines and it's divided into 8 stanzas. Okay, there are 8 stanzas in the poem and each stanza has 6 lines. So 6 into 8, 48. Okay, so there are 48 lines and the entire ballad is divided into 8 stanzas of 6 lines each. Okay, that's not where the interesting part ends. Each of these 6 lines, okay, is a rhyming couplet. What does the rhyming couplet means? It means that the last words, okay, in those 2 lines, the last words will rhyme with each other. For example, "O young Lochinar is come out of the west, through all wide border his steed was the best." West, best. Okay, none, alone. War, Lochinar. Stone, none. Gate, late. Okay, hall, all of these lines are called rhyming couplets, because a couplet is a stanza or a break. Okay, in poem we call a couplet, you either have couplets or quatrains or like that. Okay, it's basically where the full stop comes. Okay, so it's not technically a full stop in this particular poem because it was written long time ago, but you call it a couplet when there are when 2 lines are there and the idea from the first line is carried on to the second and the last words are rhyming with each other. Okay, they are directly rhyming with each other. Those are called rhyming couplets, and it is because of these rhyming couplets that we have that wavy 1 2 1 2 beat like nature sound that comes up when we read this particular poem. Okay, and another thing is about the rhyme scheme. Because they are rhyming couplets, obviously the rhyme scheme will be AA, BB, CC. I hope you remember in your school you used to demarcate the rhymes, right? How do you demarcate the rhyme scheme? You look at the last word. Okay, if you look at the first paragraph, west, best. I'll show you the first paragraph. Wait. Okay, look at this first paragraph. West, best. Okay, so for the first line you put A there. Okay, so then you look at the next line. There's the word best, which rhymes with west. So it's the same rhyme, that's why you put A again. So the first two lines have the rhyme scheme A. The next word is none. Does it rhyme with best? No, it doesn't, right? It doesn't rhyme. So then it cannot be A, it has to be B. The next word is alone, which rhymes with none almost. Okay, it's not very rhymey, but we have to consider it because it's sort of like an I rhyme. It looks the same even though it doesn't sound the same. Okay, so I rhymes are also there. I'm not going into details because you're not